You open your eyes. You can't read. You've never seen a wheel. You don't know what year it is, but it's roughly 20,000 years before anyone alive today will be born. You only know one thing for certain. It's cold. Not jacket cold. Cold like the air is a living thing, and it wants you dead. You clicked on this to find out what it actually felt like to be an Ice Age human. Not the cartoon, the real day. So forget your century. Forget the screen. For the next few minutes, you're not watching this person. You are this person. And here's the first thing you need to understand. By the time the sun is high, you could already be dead, and not from anything with teeth. The thing most likely to kill you today is invisible, silent, and already in this shelter with you. Lying inches from your body is a single object worth more than gold. Lose it and you're gone within days. By the end of this day, you'll know exactly what it is. Your breath fogs the dark. You're on a bed of dry grass and hide, packed tight against 3 other bodies. You sleep this close on purpose. Skin against skin is heat, and heat is the whole game. This is the last glacial maximum, the coldest the planet has been in 100,000 years. To the north, ice sheets sit a mile thick. Where you lie, the air outside is brutally colder than the same patch of Earth will ever feel in the modern world. There's no alarm, no coffee, just one question your body asks before your mind even wakes. Is the fire still alive? You lift your head, you find the hearth, a low orange glow. Embers, breathing faintly under a banking of ash. Relief. But thin relief, because that fire didn't survive on its own. Someone stayed awake to feed it. Through the worst of the night, while you slept, one person sat in the cold and kept the most important thing in your world from going out. You take turns. Tonight, it was the young one, barely more than a boy. Because if those embers had died, this shelter wouldn't just be uncomfortable by morning, it would be a tomb. Let the fire go out in this cold, and everyone breathing around you is dead within hours. So before you've stood up, before you've eaten, you owe your life to a teenager who didn't sleep. That is how thin the margin is here, and it's about to get thinner. You sit up, and the cold finds every seam, hunting for a way in. So how are you still alive? 3 answers, and the first one is what you're wearing. You probably pictured an Ice Age human in one ragged animal skin. Wrong. Your clothing is tailored, sewn, fitted. A soft layer against the skin, a wind-killing layer over it. Stitched boots packed with dry grass. A hood, mittens, made to trap a shell of warm air around your body and never let it go. And every piece was built with one tiny tool, a needle of carved bone, finer than you'd believe these primitive people could make. That needle is the object worth more than gold. Tailored clothing is the only reason mammoth hunters could survive a continent of ice instead of freezing in a single night. Second answer, this shelter. Low, hide over a bone and wood frame, dug slightly into the earth, lined with grass and skins. One small hearth inside, a hole for smoke. Small on purpose, small holds heat. Third answer, the bodies. You all sleep in a heap because 4 people share warmth that one person would lose. And here's the part that stops you. Someone made that clothing for you, sat by the fire for hours, pushing bone through stiff hide again and again, so that you would live through the winter. They didn't have to. That's not survival. That's love. 40,000 years before the word existed. And if that lands for you, if the idea that these were people who kept each other alive out of pure devotion gives you a chill, then you're exactly who this channel is for. Subscribe now while you feel it, because this day only gets more astonishing. I promise you that. You crawl out through the flap, and the real cold hits you like a wall. The world is white and blue and silent. Steam rises off the camp. You glance at the sky out of habit, its color, the shape of the high clouds, the smell of the air. Weather here isn't small talk. A storm you fail to read can bury this camp and everyone in it. Today the sky is hard and clear. Today you have time. Your first job of the morning is also one of the deadliest if you get it wrong, and almost nobody thinks about it. Water. You're surrounded by snow and ice, and you cannot just eat it. Putting a fistful of snow in your mouth steals heat from the one furnace keeping you alive, your own core. In this climate, that's how people quietly kill themselves. So you melt it. Ice over the fire, in a vessel, turn to water that won't cost you your body heat to drink, which means everything circles back to the fire. And the fire has a problem. Look around. No forests. The Mammoth Steppe is grassland, nearly treeless. So what are you burning? Anything that holds heat. Dry grass twisted into bundles. Dung. And bone. Fat-soaked bone actually burns. Slow and hot. A fuel walking around on four legs out on the plain. Keeping a fire alive here is a daily act of genius, and your people have it down to a craft. And if it ever does die, you can bring it back, but not easily. You strike a lump of iron pyrite against flint, and rain sparks onto a nest of dry tinder fungus and shredded grass. Then breathe it into flame with a patience that would break a modern person. Easier than starting fire is never losing it. When the band moves camp, someone carries a smoldering ember wrapped in fungus and hide, a living coal walking to the next home. You do not take fire for granted. Fire is the only line between you and the dark, and out here, the dark is absolute. With water melting and the fire fed, your stomach turns to the next problem, breakfast. And what you reach for first isn't meat. It's the one thing that matters more than meat in a frozen world. The thing your body is screaming for. The thing that is the actual difference between life and death out here. Most people get this completely backwards. Fat. In the cold, calories are heat, and fat is the densest fuel there is. A lean diet in this climate will starve you even with a full belly. There's even a name for that slow death. So you don't crave the muscle. You crave the marrow, the organs, the grease. You crack a leftover bone and dig out the marrow. You scrape rendered fat from a stored pouch. There's roasted meat from yesterday, maybe dried strips, maybe frozen berries pounded into fat to make a cake that keeps for months. You eat with your hands, fast and grateful, grease on your chin, the heat of the food spreading through a body that has been cold since the day it was born. Hunger here isn't a diet, it's a constant background hum, and a full belly by the fire is one of the deepest pleasures your world has to offer. You eat fast, close to the fire, and around you the camp wakes up the same way. Bodies stirring, children whining, someone coughing, the smell of smoke and fat and animal hide. Nobody is lying around. By the time the light is full, the work has started. And here's the part no movie will ever show you. Because the thing that actually kept your entire species alive through the Ice Age wasn't the dramatic hunt. It was a chore so dull, so endless, and so brutal on the hands that it's been edited out of every story ever told about you. And you're about to spend hours doing it. Hide. A dead animal is meat for a week, but its skin is survival for years. If you process it before it rots, and that is relentless work. You kneel over a stretched hide and scrape. Flesh off the inside, hair off the outside, hour after hour. With a flint scraper, your knuckles aching in the cold. Then you soften it. Worked by hand, rubbed, sometimes tanned with the animal's own brain. Smoked over the fire so it stays supple instead of drying stiff as bark. Only then does it become clothing. Boots, shelter, cord, bags. This is the real engine of Ice Age survival. Not one heroic kill, but 1,000 patient hours turning dead animals into the gear that keeps you warm. The people doing it aren't extras in your story. They are the story. And while you scrape, the rest of the camp hums. Someone repairs a spear. Someone twists sinew into cord. Someone restitches a torn boot with that same precious needle. Sinew becomes thread and cord strong enough to bind a blade for life. Plant fiber becomes netting and snare line. Someone renders a pot of fat down for the lamps. Someone rehafts a flint edge onto a fresh handle with pine pitch and bound sinew. None of it is dramatic. All of it is the difference between a band that lasts the winter and one that doesn't. Ice Age survival was never a single brave moment. It was 10,000 small, cold, careful acts, repeated every day of your life. And the smallest member of the camp is already watching you, copying you, reaching for a sharp stone with tiny hands. Because the most dangerous skill these people own is one a 4-year-old starts learning. And getting it wrong draws blood every single time. A child sits beside you with a piece of flint and a striking stone, frowning. This is napping, and it is far harder than it looks. Strike at exactly the right angle, with exactly the right force, and a razor-thin flake splits off. One wrong hit and the whole thing shatters into useless gravel. There's a sequence to it, a plan held in the head before the first blow. A blade made this way comes off sharper than the steel knives that won't be invented for 20,000 years. The child fails. Tries again, nicks a finger, sucks it, tries again. Nobody scolds them. This is how every skill moves from one generation to the next here. Not in a classroom, but hand to hand, by watching and failing and bleeding a little. All day the youngest ones are underfoot, strapped to a mother's back while she works, toddling after older siblings, play hunting with little spears, copying everything they see. There is no school. Childhood is the school, and the lessons are real. The fire burns, the blade cuts, the cold kills. A child who learns fast lives, and the whole band raises them together, because the whole band depends on what they'll one day know. And that's the deeper truth about you. You are not a savage. The brain in your skull is, on average, a touch larger than the modern average. Ancient humans in the Ice Age were every bit as clever as anyone alive today. You carry hundreds of plants in your memory, the movements of herds, the meaning of a single bent blade of grass. You are a specialist in a world that would erase a modern human in an afternoon. But all of that knowledge points at one quiet, unglamorous fact most people get wrong about the Ice Age. The spear is not what feeds you. Most of what goes in your mouth today won't be hunted at all. It'll be dug out of frozen ground. And the people keeping the whole band alive aren't the ones you'd expect. A giant kill is a jackpot, and you can't live on jackpots. Most days, survival is quieter than that. Most of your calories come from gathering, and it's mostly the women and the older children who bring it in, day after day. The steady food that bridges the long gaps between big kills. The old line that men hunted and women gathered, and only the hunting mattered, it's backwards. The gathering is what keeps you breathing. And we now know women hunted too. The neat little division you were taught was never that neat. So you dig. Roots and tubers prized from half-frozen earth. Frozen berries. Nuts and seeds stored from autumn. Lichen, inner bark, anything with calories. You check snares set the day before. A hare in a trap is worth more to your survival than a mammoth you may never catch. You crack the ice on a river and fish through the hole. Your fingers go numb and you warm them in your armpits and keep going. Because stopping isn't an option. You read the snow as you walk. Fresh tracks, droppings, a tuft of fur snagged on a thorn, building a living map in your head of what's near and what's worth coming back for. The children trail behind, learning every plant by name and every danger by heart. Nothing you know was ever written down. All of it was walked, tasted, and remembered. It is cold, patient, unspectacular work. It is also the difference between a band that lives and a band that vanishes. And then, mid-morning, everything stops. A scout comes back over the rise, moving fast and signals. The herd is close, which means today is one of those days. The day you walk up to the largest animal on the continent and try to kill it with a sharpened stick. And the next 20 minutes are the most dangerous of your entire life. You don't charge. That's the cartoon. Real Ice Age survival is patience and cunning. You read the herd. You use the land. Wind in your face so your scent doesn't carry. The group fanning out without a sound. Talking in flicks of the hand and turns of the head. You've done this since childhood. You've watched the elders do it your whole life. In your hand is a spear, and the clever part isn't the spear. It's a carved length of wood with a hook on the end. A spear spear thrower, an atlatl. It works like an extra joint in your arm, and it sends a spear far faster and far harder than any arm alone. Without it, hunting a woolly mammoth is suicide. With it, a coordinated group of humans becomes the most dangerous predator the planet has produced. You ease one old, slower animal away from the herd, towards soft ground where its weight betrays it. The signal comes. Then everything happens at once. Spears fly. The ground shakes. The wounded giant wheels and screams, a sound you'll hear in your dreams for the rest of your life. You are close enough to feel the air move when the trunk swings. One wrong step into those legs and it isn't the mammoth that dies. You don't take that step. And finally, under everyone's spears together, the giant goes down. But here's what the stories never tell you. The kill was the easy part. What comes next is a frantic race against the cold, the rot, and everything else on the steppe that just smelled blood on the wind. A woolly mammoth is a walking warehouse, and you have to empty it fast. You butcher in the cold with flint blades, hands slick and freezing. The meat feeds the band for weeks. What you can't eat now, you cache in pits dug into permafrost, nature's own freezer, or cut into strips to dry. The hide becomes shelter and clothing. The fat fuels lamps and fires through the long dark. The tusks and the great bones become tools, and where there are no trees, they become houses. Prehistoric humans built real dome shelters out of mammoth bone, dozens of animals in a single home. Archaeologists still dig them up, standing proof that you engineered your world. So there goes another myth. Most Ice Age humans didn't live in caves, they built. But every minute you spend out here, butchering in the open, is a minute the cave lions and hyenas circle closer, drawn by the smell. You haul the meat back in relays, fast, glancing over your shoulder. Out here, slow is the word that gets you killed. The cold is your ally now. It slows the rot long enough for you to move everything that matters. By dusk, the carcass is bare bone, and the band is richer than it's been in weeks. Weeks of food, a fresh stock of hide and fat and tool bone, all of it out of one animal and one terrifying morning. Nothing is wasted, nothing can be. Back at camp, the reward waits, the first hot meal of the day, and you're about to watch your people cook a feast without a single pot, pan, or anything that can sit in a fire. The way they pull it off is so clever it survived for thousands of years. There's no pottery yet, no metal. So how do you boil anything? You cheat physics. You heat stones in the fire until they glow, then drop them straight into a hide bag or a hollowed gut full of water. The stones dump their heat, the water boils, and you cook a stew of meat and fat and roots without ever putting the container near a flame. Other cuts roast on the coals. You crack long bones for the hot marrow. The fat is the prize. You eat it first. And then comes the thing that truly separates you from every animal on the steppe. You share. The hunter who made the kill doesn't get the best portion. The meat moves through the whole band, and often the one who threw the killing spear takes one of the smallest shares, on purpose. Because a full belly today means nothing if the band fractures tomorrow. Sharing is the insurance policy that keeps all of you alive. The children eat, the old eat, the sick eat. You see to that before you fill your own belly. Because a band that lets its weakest starve doesn't stay a band for very long. Which raises a strange question. With no chief, no boss, no police, and no one who owns anything, who is actually in charge here? The answer is nobody. And the moment somebody tries to change that, your people have a quietly ruthless way of cutting them back down to size. You live in a band, 25 to 40 people, most of them family. There's no king, no taxes, no one owns the land. Hunter-gatherers are fiercely, almost aggressively equal. Brag about your kill and you'll be mocked until you stop. Try to give orders and the group simply ignores you, teases you, refuses to follow, until you remember you're no better than anyone else. Power doesn't get to pool here. It gets dissolved, on purpose, by laughter. And the glue that holds it together is the thing you do more than anything else all day. You talk, constantly. You gossip, you argue, you negotiate, you settle who wronged whom. You decide together where to move next. In a world with no police and no written law, talk is the law.
It's how 40 people survive shoulder to shoulder without tearing each other apart. And your world is far bigger than these 40 faces. A few times a year, when the seasons or the herds bring bands together, your camp swells. And that's when marriages are arranged, when tools and gifts and stories are traded, when news travels hundreds of miles by mouth alone. You marry outward, into other bands, on purpose. It widens the web of people who will take you in when your own valley fails. Your survival network isn't just the people at this fire. It's a whole scattered nation of them, held together by nothing but memory, kinship, and trust. But don't mistake this for a soft paradise. Feeding a mouth that can't feed itself, the injured, the sick, the very old, is a real cost in a world this thin, and your people pay it anyway. Dig up Stone Age skeletons, and you find broken legs healed clean, bodies that should have died young that didn't. You only survive a shattered bone here if someone sets it, carries you, and feeds you for weeks while you give nothing back. Every one of those healed bones is a decision the whole band made, morning after morning. We are not leaving you behind. In a world this brutal, that mercy was never automatic. It was chosen. And the people who benefit most from that mercy, the old ones with gray hair and missing teeth, turn out to be the single most valuable members of the entire group. Lose one, and you lose something that can never be replaced. There are no books here, no writing, no way to store knowledge outside a human skull. So the elders are the library. That old woman by the fire knows every plant on the steppe, which fills a belly, which stops a wound bleeding, which kills. She remembers the brutal winter 40 years ago and what the band did to live through it. She knows where the herds go when the snow comes, where water runs under the ice, which mushrooms are medicine and which are death. When a child burns with fever or a hunter is carried home torn open, it's her the whole band turns to. Her hands, her herbs, the bindings and salves no one else remembers how to make. Lose her, and you don't just lose a person. You lose a lifetime of survival data, gone in a single breath. That's why your people guard their old ones. An elder who can no longer hunt or gather is still carrying the most precious cargo in the band, the knowledge that keeps everyone else alive. 3 generations sit around this fire, sometimes 4. The "they all died at 30" line is a myth built from an average that infant deaths dragged down. Survive childhood here, and your 60s and 70s are well within reach. And tonight, around this same fire, you're about to do something with that old woman's stories that scientists now believe is the very thing that made you human. More than the fire, more than the tools, more than the hunt. But first, there's a reason your people crawl half a mile into pitch-black caves to do something that makes no survival sense at all. Deep inside the caves, past the daylight, through tunnels barely wide enough for a body, there are walls covered in painting, cave art. Bison, horses, lions, mammoths, handprints in red and black that will still glow in torchlight thousands of years from now. This isn't crude scribbling. The animals breathe. You use the bulges in the rock to give a bison its shoulder. When modern people first found it, they refused to believe Ice Age humans made it. And the haunting question is why? Why risk your life crawling into the black with a flickering fat lamp to paint where almost no one will ever see it? Not for decoration, for meaning, for ritual, for the spirits of the animals you hunt and fear and depend on. These caves are your cathedrals. It isn't only painting. You carve small figures and carry them from camp to camp. And by the fire, someone lifts a flute, carved from bone, finger holes drilled in, tuned to real notes. The oldest instruments ever found come from the Ice Age, before farming, before cities. Before writing, you had music. Because you were never only trying to survive. You were trying to live, to mark the world, to say, I was here, I felt something, remember me. And that hunger is about to fill the longest, darkest hours of your day with the one ritual that built everything we became. The light bleeds out of the sky and the cold tightens its grip. You pull in close to the fire. The day's work is finally done. The hides scraped, the meat stored, the tools mended, the children fed, and the whole character of the day changes. In daylight, talk is practical. Where the herd went, which plants are ready, who saw what tracks. But at night, around the flame, you tell stories. How the world was made. Tales of ancestors and animals and spirits. Heroes, tricksters, jokes that crack the whole camp open with laughter. The band leans in, faces lit orange, and you travel, without moving an inch, into worlds that don't exist. To you, nothing out there is dead matter. The river has a spirit. The mountain watches. The animal you killed today had a soul you owe respect, or the next hunt turns against you. Your dreams are messages. This way of seeing has a name, animism, and almost every band of early humans on Earth shared it. This is where culture is born, the original theater, the original classroom, the original church. Scientists now think these fire-lit hours, the stories, the shared imagining, may be the very thing that turned a clever animal into us. And then you'll do one more thing tonight that the modern world has completely lost. Something that'll make you wake at 2 a.m., wide awake, calm, and perfectly fine. Not insomnia, a superpower that got switched off only a few centuries ago. You don't sleep in one long block. Almost no human did until very recently. You drift off not long after dark and sleep deep for a few hours. Then, in the dead middle of the night, you wake. Not in a panic, not as a problem, just awake. The fire crackles, bodies breathe around you, and your mind floats in a calm, dreamy, half-waking state. You think about the day. You turn over your dreams while they're fresh. Maybe you whisper to the person beside you. Maybe you just lie there peacefully in the dark. Then you sleep again until dawn. This was normal for ancient humans. 2 sleeps, with a quiet, reflective hour wedged between them that belonged to no one but you. The modern world lost that hour. Light bulbs and screens erased it. So when a person jolts awake at 2 a.m. today, they call it insomnia and panic and reach for a phone. But the body isn't broken. The body is remembering. It's running a program written across the entire Ice Age, a program still buried inside the person watching this right now. And that is the real reason you've spent this whole day inside this body. Because this story was never really about the past. Here's the truth this whole day has been walking you toward. Everything you just lived, the cold, the fire, the water, the hides, the hunt, the gathering, the sharing, the stories, the split sleep. It isn't ancient history happening to someone else. It's your own deep past. That body you lived in all day wasn't a stranger. It was your ancestor. For the overwhelming majority of human existence, this was life. Tens of thousands of years of it. Hunter-gatherers by the fire under a river of stars. Cities, farms, writing, all of it is a thin, recent skin stretched over a body shaped entirely by the Ice Age. Your brain was tuned by it. Your love of a glowing screen telling you a story. That's the campfire. Your need for a small circle of people you trust. That's the band. Your strange 2 a.m. wakefulness. That's the 2 sleeps. The chill you felt when someone sewed clothing to keep a loved one alive. That's tens of thousands of years of devotion, still echoing inside you. You are not separate from these people. You are these people. Just warmer, just better fed, just a little further from the fire. And that one bone needle from this morning, the object worth more than gold, turns out to be the whole day in miniature. Survival, intelligence, and love, stitched into a single, tiny tool. That's who you always were. So tonight, when the sun goes down and you flip a switch and light floods the room without a second thought, remember the body you just lived in. The cold, the fire, the needle, the shared meal, the stories, the 2 sleeps, the river of stars. It's all still in there. Every craving for warmth, for belonging, for a circle that would never leave you behind. None of it came from civilization. It came from this body, this fire, this exact freezing, beautiful, brutal day. You didn't leave the Ice Age human behind. You just stopped listening to them. And if this day moved you, then watch this next, because the story of how your ancestors clawed their way through the coldest world humans ever faced, the survival secrets that kept them alive when everything was built to kill them, is even more incredible than the day you just lived. I'll see you there.